Good morning and a very warm welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. No Bandulu Jayasekara this morning. He's having one more day off. He's recovering. However, we are joined this morning by senior former banker and former trade unionist too, Mr. Rusri Tenakon. Good morning, Mr. Rusri.
Good morning, Faras.
Delightful to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
We do appreciate your appearances. Mr. Rusri, we were going to discuss this morning what is on everybody's mind, the budget. And you seem to me to be rather a pretty good choice for this. What do you think of this budget?
Yeah. Thank you for choosing me to make a few comments. But I should say, Faras, this is a very unique budget in the sense we have to take into account under what circumstances or during what period that we are putting this budget forward, this Minister of Finance, and under what circumstances. So in that context, it is going to be unique in many respects. Now take for example, this country, according to the proclamations or the announcements made by the politicians and the people in authority, there have been many disfigured situations, you know,
like what?
The correction of figures, like the central bank statistics and so on.
Yes, they chose a different stand.
Yeah, regarding the economy of the country, the rates that were given, it is challenged that they are not correct, they are incorrect. But the actual figures are entirely different situation. So in such a situation, the budget has to have a tendency to correct or take into account those incorrect situations, number one. Then the next one is, it has to be, now this is not the short-term 100-day government budget.
This is the first time, the first budget from
the consensus government.
Consensus, yes. But they call it a national government. You know, I remember you being very much opposed to that term.
Yes, I continue to say that this is a consensus government of consensus because so many features that are required under a national government is not there. Well, that apart, you know, you can see from the performance of the parliament itself, there is no national consensus that appears to be prevailing. So therefore, I prefer to call it a government of consensus. Whatever it is now, this is the first budget that is put forward by the government, by the new government, on a long-term basis. Now it has to be a sustainable long-term policy budget backed with sustainable long-term policies. That's number one. And the most important thing is it has to exhibit the fusion of the mindsets of the partners in this consensus government. You see, now we can't forget the fact that this is a government composing of two sections fighting an election separately on two different manifestos.
And trying to run the country
Yes,
together.
now they are together. I have never so far not seen the merging of the principles announced or pronounced in the manifestos so far, in that broad sense, other than the consensus they claim to have reached. There is it was not visible to us that this policy has been compromised for this, or this policy has been adopted in this place. There's nothing of the sort. So we imagine as citizens, well, there is an understanding, there is a consensus. So in such a situation, the finance minister's task would have been really an uphill task for us. And take for example, this finance minister, he's sown so many portfolios, so many areas in his portfolio.
That's right. He is a finance minister without the state banks. He is the finance minister without the central bank. Perhaps he's wise not to have the central bank with him. But it appears to us that he is somewhat operating with one hand tied behind his back.
It has sort of created an issue as to why and how it is done.
Do you think it's because of this sort of tendency on the Prime Minister to act as he wishes and as he demands?
It looks like that he's trying out so many new new sort of experiments, I should say.
Somewhat out of the democratic line, though.
Somewhat out of the pattern that we were used to.
Right.
This country, since independence, the Ministry of Finance had under its control the state banks and the leading state-owned enterprises dealing in the financial sector, as well as the central bank. So there was, to us, there was some kind of cohesion and then group thinking when it comes to financial activities in relation to these important institutions of the country. And that seems to be missing right now.
What would you say is the outstanding feature of the budget then, if there is any one thing?
I think it has sort of given a kind of consolation to everybody, looking at it from a very, very sort of independent overview, I can say that there is a bit of a consoling attitude towards the budget.
The finance minister's statement that Sri Lanka will be turned into a shopper's paradise, that's good news, isn't it? Because he's also reducing the appropriate taxes and levies on these branded goods. Yeah. Isn't that a good thing?
Certainly it is, because if you are thinking in the direction of an open market economy and also opening it up for tourism and other areas, much more sophisticated, so these things have to come into place. So it is good thinking that we really open it up in that sense, of course having in mind various other important aspects that we have to look into in the context of the thinking of the policymakers of the country, the culture, the religion, our own historical background, all those things to be borne in mind. Nevertheless, the attempt or the effort to sort of open it up in this sense to the world, as it is required by the world, is a good approach. Is a good approach. Is a timely approach, I should say.
And what's he done for? Give us some specifics. What have you got?
Well, I must say the first thing, the very significant, notable feature in this budget I see is in the sense of a long-term investment. What is planning to do to the education? I mean, there was much clamor in the country from all sectors about how much of money is really will be pumped into education. In fact, they had laid a standard that it should be 6% of the GDP. But I think this time they have come very close to that figure, 5.5 or 5.6, something very close to that. But besides the statistics, his approach to education as a long-term investment from an overview about the future of the country is very important.
Right.
Very important. But there is something again wanted there as well.
Right.
You know, the buildings, laboratories, sports grounds, teachers, all these are important in education.
What about, yes, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but a very important thing, very important area is the curriculums. The school curriculum is the basic factor in the...
But that is, of course, beyond the finance minister.
True. This is what I am going to say.
Yeah.
The finance minister can pump in the money, but there should be more thinking, a positive thinking, update thinking to reform the education in relation to the curriculum for the future generations to pick up and to take the advantage from.
Right.
I mean, just to make a remark, you know, our education system today is like, you know, teaching somebody to hunt in the zoo.
Really?
Yeah.
What good is that then?
Because, you know, the students are in a race to pass an examination, seek employment, and that's about all. But there is something very beyond that in an education system, in the today's concept of the world, because some kind of innovative thinking must be inculcated in the minds of the students.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for them to venture on their own into the fields rather than waiting for some job to come to them after passing an examination. That is why I say they must be taught to hunt in the jungle.
Yes, it sounds, that's a very good analogy actually. We also noticed that the Minister of Finance is wanting to separate the core business of banks and to take them away from doing the leasing, for example. Well, why is that?
It's another very important area that this finance minister has addressed in his budget. I think there is, I don't know how one will look at it from the perspective of immediate results, but in the long-term perspective, I think it is a very important approach, because banks unfortunately have been following a very laissez-faire attitude with regard to their core banking activities. They had the easy ways of making profits, reaching targets by way of profits, by going into business activities which are more profitable.
Right.
They were hardly making any contribution to the real economy of the country.
I see.
Core banking is something that sort of gives or devolves upon the responsibility as a responsibility on the banks to contribute something to the real economy of the country. But that's a difficult task, of course. It is more easier to do pawning. It's more easier to get into the leasing business. Interest rates are very high. Risk factors are nil virtually, and they get a lot of tax-free concessions, so they take the best out of it.
And what about the collection of taxes? You had a table. Do you want to?
Yes.
Shall we show this table on the screen?
Yes.
No, they put it on now. And what does this table tell us?
You see,
I
I have extracted this from the central bank reports.
Right.
You know, this shows the difference of the contribution to the economy or tax collection figures from the direct sources as well as from the indirect sources.
Right.
Indirect sources being the affluent, the companies, the corporate sector, high.
So those are the darker lower bars.
That's right.
Okay.
Now you see, as against those, the contribution made by the indirect taxpayers in this country.
Yeah.
So
are the higher bars.
This is a huge,
much different.
very big difference. Now this is something that this finance minister has sort of attempted to address in this budget. It's a very good thing, because
it appears then what you're saying is that the Minister of Finance this time round has been listening to industry.
I think so. He has been not only to the industry, he has been listening to almost all sectors of the society. That is what it appears to be. He has been very sort of down to earth in adopting or announcing certain policies. You know, he had mentioned about American nuts also in the budget. So these are areas, however insignificant or unimportant they appear to be, from an analysis based on dialectical approach, or rather I should say a doctrinal approach.
Yeah.
You know, people try to attribute doctrines to budgets, no? Whether it is capitalist, whether it is socialist. But in this case, he has been very free to make it a very pragmatic budget. Very pragmatic. He has freed himself from the doctrines very carefully, as far as I can see. Of course, there are very many things wanted in some of the announcements that he has made. You can't have everything in the budget.
No,
you can't.
We aren't living in utopia.
No. That utopian thinking should be ruled out from the minds of everybody. Even those criticizing the budget should carefully think the state of the economy we are faced with today. And we have to start our criticisms, our contributions from that point onwards. He can present a budget, but the budget is no end in itself. It can be improved during the debate in Parliament. It can be chopped during the debate in Parliament. These things happen.
Let's find out more about the budget. after we take a short break. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Good morning again. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Mr. Rusipala, the budget. What about the tourism, the leisure sector? What goodies are there?
Well, he has addressed some of the more mundane sort of issues in the tourism industry. But from the point of view of a long-term sort of vision, I don't see much contributed in this budget in that direction. Because, one has to take into account the futuristic standards or what is going to happen in the future in relation to the regional developments as well as in relation to the other competitors in the area. If you want to develop a real tourism industry. Now take for example, Maldives today is the most dominating player in the tourism industry in this region. With about 2,000 etolas and each one having a hotel and hotel rooms numbering over 2,000 and packed to capacity, and occupation to capacity. So they are doing very well. But what is their future? It is the geographies, the people.
You're referring to the eventual disappearance of the Maldives.
The possibility, an eventual possibility which we can't rule out.
Right.
According to the geography, it can happen sooner or later. But then, as a country, are we ready to take over from there? If that happens, of course, we are not praying that it happens. It should not. But in the event if such a disastrous thing takes place, you take the industry. Where are we going to give that ambience? The same environment, ambience, and for the tourists to enjoy in this part of the world. I think Sri Lanka is the best situated for that.
So, but what can Sri Lanka offer our visitors right now? Of course, we have our sun and we have our sand, and we have a limited number of higher-end hotels and so on. We've also got our culture. But what other? And now we may have the shopping, the international branded shopping opportunities and so on. I'm told that with the reduction of these taxes, some of the prices of these goods will become as competitive as anywhere in the region. But what else should the tourism industry be doing?
Well, I look at it from another angle. Now, see, there are countries that do not have much to offer to the tourists of their own, who have gone into development stages to attract tourists and to sustain tourism. Because when people are visiting, they must have some place to go, something to see. But our country, we have a host of inherently important, culturally important things already existing in this country. Our historic monuments, our own ancient kingdoms.
We have that, but you could do all this within a week. And if you want them to stay for another week, and keep those hotel rooms full, then you're going to have to give them some entertainment.
Most certainly, you are right there, because that itself, our historic monuments and this culture itself is not sufficient to retain or to attract tourists and for them to stay. So there must be a host of other activities required. This is a very tricky area. This is where you have to draw a line between our cultural, the cultural approach,
the cultural limitations,
the religious limitations, political limitations. So that has to be addressed. But I think there's a lot to be done. Well, very much lot to be done, and some compromises are really required. You see, you take Singapore for example. They did not have They did not have entertainment places for several years.
Yeah.
But
I think Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew at one point said that these resorts would be over his dead body.
yes, you are right. That was the concept at the beginning. And at least with that concept, they built up Sentosa Island. You know, before it was built, they thought that such things are not required. But now, if you see Singapore, within a small area and with a shorter distance, you have everything there for a person to engage himself to stay there.
Right.
So this concept has to be thought of seriously in this country too. Now, I don't think I haven't seen, with so much of land available, with so much of nature facilities providing available, we don't have a nature park in this country for the tourists to spend at least a few hours.
Well, there's one in that was developed, but we should get blamed for this. It was developed by President Rajapaksa in Hambantota, in that area. There's a bird park there.
Yeah, but that is not the type of. Now see, you see you see
There's
something.
Kirinda as well.
The night bazaar and the night zoo, the safari and that type of thing.
I fear we digress from the budget.
Yeah.
Tell me, what else is exciting in this budget? What gives us cause for hope?
Yeah, I think coming related to banking itself, and in the long-term perspective, the role that the regulator has to play in this budget is very important for us, because
again, though, this regulatory mechanism has been moved away from the Minister of Finance.
I don't know. This is where one has to seriously think how the finance minister is going to adjust his implementation part of the budget with the proper authorities properly coordinated.
Yes, indeed. Is there a commitment on the part of the public servants to play a dynamic role in this? Because it's all well and good having plans, but if you can't implement them, the business community, the commercial world will be even more frustrated.
Yes. This is where something is wanted very badly in this country right now. A culture is really required where people contribute to it and think that this is a time that everyone has to do his part to contribute, to take it on from there.
And what else is the budget got?
Now you see there is something I did not see or observe in this budget is the labor related part to the productivity in agriculture. Now take for example, he is speaking about cess, he is speaking about tax holidays, he is speaking about various concessions to the industry.
Yeah.
But the labor component in the industry is also very, very important, the human factor. Therefore,
I noticed that there is a glaring omission, or perhaps I've not caught it. But what's he done for the plantation sector?
I don't see from the viewpoint of the labor force of the plantation sector. I also didn't catch anything in the budget. So therefore, this is the thing that one will have to address, and probably during the debate the Parliament will highlight this. Parliament, I don't know whether they are so interested, because I saw something very, very sort of not very encouraging from the Parliament, because when the minister was reading the budget speech, I mean the Parliament was more disturbed to find out when he is going to finish.
Because they wanted to attend the tea party.
I don't know, but then it should have appeared otherwise for the country, because this is a once-a-year program, and it is a very important event for the country, economically as well as for the future of the country. They should have had more concern and attentive interest in finding out what this finance minister has to say about the budget, rather than trying to make it short and then I don't know whether it was to go home or to go for the tea party.
Well, we also saw some sort of apparent anomalies. We had the tax on electric vehicles being reduced, being increased from 5% to 50%. it seems to be the wrong way round.
Seems to be a bit of a mismatch there, because for our layman's thinking, what we think is, that such things should be more innovative.
Yeah.
And we should attract more concessions, because in the long run there is a lot of savings coming into the country.
What about the FDI? What has he done for FDI?
Well, in the FDI, the normal thing that giving concessions to foreign investment and then freeing from exchange control activities, he has mentioned it, he has addressed it. But about the repatriation of the profits, I think there is a bit of a silence. I don't see any specific announcement or thing being made about the repatriation part, which is also important for any investor.
Yeah.
Because what percentage of it is to be allowed to be repatriated without taxes or free of taxes, or whether it is allowed at all.
What about the reverse process? When this government encourages our businessmen to go forth and spread their wings, what about permissions to remit foreign exchange for investment purposes? There's no concession on that.
There is. I don't know whether it is a concession. Knew it was already there, because for foreign exchange earnings were free of tax even earlier. Because when you
what happens if you want to set up a business in Timbuktu and you're asking for funds to be transferred there? Will that be routinely given? But it doesn't appear to be.
It doesn't spell out in such detail.
Right.
But then we'll have to yet to see see it in practice. But what is important here is, for us, there is one area. Now you are not inviting the FDIs or the foreign investments for the sake of getting foreign investment.
Yeah.
Along with the foreign investment, the important sectors in the economy which are lagging behind, which cannot be otherwise supported locally with our resources, have to be addressed now. So I don't see any specific areas that he is mentioning, any specifically some areas where he is granting concessions and inviting specifically for those purposes. For example, take the waste management in this country. We have a very big Kunu problem. It is continuing. The MPs who have been very vociferous talking about Kunu are silent now.
Yeah.
They don't talk anymore. But this is a thing not only to the Colombo population in the Colombo cities. It is becoming a problem to all the developing cities. So now in that context, this is a very important area. I wish he could have even opened it up as a very special opportunity for any interested foreign investor to come and set up a waste management unit in this country. I mean, things like that. Then you talk about the renewable energy. I think renewable energy is an area where I don't know whether the Minister of Finance can address the issue. It is the Minister.
Well, we're running out of time, but it's a very, very interesting subject, because I think there's over 12 approvals for mini hydro project, isn't there?
Yeah.
So we may have to discuss that on another program on a different day. But Mr. Risipale, thank you very much for your thoughts on the budget, and we look forward to welcoming you again. And a short thought for the day: concentrate all your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought into focus. On that thought, I'll wish you a very good morning, have a great week, and take care.